I'm watching Rashad Evans before this fight against Lyoto Machida. Workout day, he's doing some kind of shuffling, faking thing. They're not drilling a whole lot of wrestling. Hey, maybe it was an opportunity to not show what the game plan was, but apparently the game plan wasn't wrestling. What did you think as you watched that fight? I thought disastrous effort in terms of game planning for Lyoto Machida.
Absolutely. I mean, we all knew going into that fight that both of them are defensive fighters, counter fighters, so it had to make it to be a boring fight. But Rashad ran the whole time. I mean, I don't know if he got out there and threw the game plan out, gave him too much respect after one of those hits, but he ran the whole fight. And my belief is, I've got two plans if any of my fighters ever fight Lyoto Machida. First of all, I'm going to go to 3 of the best karate schools in the area, get their best guys, and work that timing. Because that's all it is. He has a different timing than everybody else. And secondly, you need to be a wrestler. You need to be chest to chest with that guy, and you need to be either pressuring him against the cage or putting him on his back. You know, and Rashad did none of that. He gave Lyoto everything he needed to make himself look invincible.
Yep. And it's a huge lost opportunity. Because you're not getting it. If you lose like that, and Evans is going to be doing the reality show, which we'll get to in a couple of minutes, even if he beats Rampage Jackson, they can't justify giving him another shot for like 2 years.
It's a tough situation for him. And, I mean, he was dominating everybody. He was knocking out guys that weren't getting knocked out. Let's face it. I mean, that's the situation he was in. But he's going to have a long road back.
I think there's a dangerous trend going on right now with wrestlers where they're learning the hands, they're getting better at it. Now, Gray Maynard, we're going to see. I think Gray could have mixed it up, but he dominated Jim Miller in that last fight, so it worked. But the Sean Shirk thing, I thought, was disastrous.
Koscheck's doing the same thing.
Is doing the same thing. Matt Hughes has fallen into it a little bit. Not so much this fight, but in the fight against GSP. You got to realize where your strengths are.
Absolutely. And, I mean, if I look at the basis of this game that we play, MMA, boxing and wrestling are the 2 main things. Everything else you can catch up in. You can catch up in kickboxing over the years. You can catch up in jiu-jitsu. But if you're a good, solid boxer and wrestler, especially wrestler, first of all, wrestlers come with the best training ethics. You know, you don't come out of a wrestling room, a high-level wrestler, not knowing how to work hard. Mm-hmm. And that's the basis of this sport, being in shape. But, you know, I agree with you 100%. I just see too many of these guys evacuating that game plan.
Well, you can't. You know, it's nice to be able to think you can reinvent yourself when you're like 30 or something like that. Not going to happen.
Right.
You know, if you haven't been, you can maybe do enough to get by in certain disciplines, but you got to rely on what got you there. It's one thing if you're 15 or 20 years old, now you can learn something brand new and incorporate it. But when you get older, it's like learning a new language when you get older.
I sometimes wonder, though, if they're doing this purely because, I mean, there's a lot of stress on a fighter now in the UFC. Mm-hmm. If you don't perform, if you don't make an exciting fight, you could be told you're gone.
Now, pound for pound list. Listen, I'm not that my word means anything, but working for Yahoo, you know, I put in my vote. But I have a feeling I'm not going to go as gaga as everyone else. I want to see a little more from a track record standpoint with Machida. Are people getting crazy if all of a sudden they start throwing him over George St. Pierre, over BJ Penn, potentially over Anderson Silva?
Absolutely, I think they are. You know, and we really got to see him on his back. I mean, I know he comes from, his father's a karate master, but he's also a jiu-jitsu master. I want to see him on his back, and I want to see him deal with wrestling.
Well, he could lose his next fight. I mean, you know, if he's in with Rampage Jackson?
No, it's not going to be.
It's not going to be?
No. Right now, it's completely up in the air. Okay. So we're going to have to see what the matchup is.
Rampage and Rashad are going to do the show.
They're doing the reality show, so they're, at best, I don't think Evans is getting another shot, even if he beats Rampage. That show, Rampage and Evans are going to coach tough. Taping is going to begin in a couple of days. The finale for the show will be like December 12th, and then they'll do the New Year's show, and that'll probably be one of the main events on the New Year's show. So those guys are out. So now it's going to be really intriguing to see who they find as an opponent for Machida, and if it's a ground fighter.
Yeah, I mean,
you got any candidates at 205? Because I tell you, I was trying to come up with a list last night.
Everybody's expecting Quentin to be the next step until this week, until we heard that he was going to do the show. Yeah. Which I don't think I think it's a good idea.
I think it's a great idea.
Whoever manages Quentin did the right thing. They need more time. They need more time because Quentin has been going out and boxing everybody, and that's not a good thing. That's what Rashad did. Now I think Quentin will be more offensive with it, but he needs to get back to wrestling. Let's face it.
Yep. He's got against Machida, off of what we've seen, in the short stints. like you said, you got to close the distance. You got to use power.
You got to pressure him. You got to pressure him.
Yeah. I mean, you certainly can't stay at a distance.
No.
Where it makes him comfortable to throw, left kicks followed by left hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a fighter, but watching that Rashad approach was just. Are you surprised at Greg Jackson? Because the guy was getting a reputation, as if kind of the Freddie Roach of MMA.
It's such a tough sport because, and that's my other thing with these rankings and stuff. It's like in boxing, you could dominate for a long time. In MMA, anything can happen at any time. The referees. I was saying something to one of the fans like 2 minutes before Yves Levine made the big mistake the other night as well. Calling a halt to the fight and then restarting it and then realizing he did the wrong thing. In a sport like this, there's going to be huge mistakes made, even on a coach's level. We've all made mistakes, and Greg Jackson is known as the master of the game plan. Sooner or later, that's going to be lost sometimes.
Right. And as Freddie Roach says often, my game plans are great, but I also have the best fighter in the world to work with.
So let me throw a name out. Somebody actually texted it in. I was thinking the same thing. For Machida. How about Randy Couture? Why not? I mean,
Randy's,
you got to find out what's left in the tank for Randy, and it would be a huge test.
We've got Nogueira in August, so I think that's already pattered down, stamped, and everything. So I mean, that's what that kind of throws a difference in when Loya is going to fight again.
Dave, I'm telling you, it's an interesting decision with the reality show not to have Machida and Jackson and not have that as the next fight because you start looking for candidates. Forrest is locked up with Anderson Silva. Randy is locked up. So if you start looking for like quick turnarounds, even if Randy could get through Nogueira, win the fight, and get through uninjured, quickest he could fight is what, December?
Absolutely.
Probably.
Yeah.
The names that I was coming up with were, I think the guy wants to fight, and you know what? If he wants to go out and get his head ripped off, or maybe he pulls the upset of the century, give him one last fight, and that's Chuck Liddell. It's a way to build Machida. If he destroys Chuck, then that's it. There's no Chuck thinking to himself, hey, I want to keep fighting. And I'll give you the other guy. You tell me what the Brazilian camp mix is. Why wouldn't Shogun Rua get a shot?
I mean, I'm sure that they were both camps are different camps. They could go for that, and what else is there? Really, I see what you're saying, Mark Coleman called them on, but Mark Coleman ain't in the running, let's face it,
No.
So
I threw out, if they want to go, build Lyoto and maybe he destroys a guy, you risk it because you could lose to him. I threw out someone like, and it's a big reach, but the guy Luis Kane.
Right. I think his next fight, honestly, is going to be somebody that we're going to say, okay, let's put him in with that. But really, his next big test is going to be closer to Christmas and New Year's, and it's going to be probably a guy like Quentin Jackson.
So where's Randy now?
Randy is in Louisiana filming with Sylvester Stallone, James Woods, Mickey Rourke, a mercenary movie.
All right. And that's going to finish up, and then he starts training for Nogueira.
Finishes up, he'll be back here in Vegas June 24th.
Didn't figure with that cast it was a romance.
Definitely not. No. So yeah, he'll be back. We start camp June 25th.
Okay. I got to ask, how's he doing with all the personal stuff?
Seems to be doing fine. He was in the gym this past weekend. He came in town for UFC. We hung out. And he's focused. He's training hard still, and everything's business as usual for that guy. It takes a lot to shake Randy Couture.
All right. Is Kim around the gym?
Absolutely, she is.
Okay.
She's in there in the morning. She's training with her boxing trainer, Gil Martinez, and one of her Thai boxing coaches.
So how are you guys dealing with that? That's a little interesting. If people don't know, Kim and Randy are getting divorced. Kim's been a big presence at the gym for a while. Drama? Is it kind of business as usual? You tiptoeing around each other? I mean, that's a weird situation for the rest of the people at the gym.
It can be uncomfortable, but it's at the same time it's none of our business,
All right.
And when we just keep it that way, that's personal. That's them. We're there to be fighters and trainers and coaches and champions. That's our problem.
All right.
If they can't handle it, that's theirs.
I don't know if you have inside information on this one, but when a divorce goes down, obviously the gym is someone's property. What happens there?
Well, that depends on how they.
I don't know. I'm just.
I mean,
Again,
because that would be. I'll tell you what. Extreme Couture, and hey, if Kim has a right to it, I don't know. I'm not a divorce, judge or whatever, family judge. If she has a right to the gym, and you've got all these loyal followers of Randy.
Well, that may all be a negotiation that they're doing with their lawyers. So there's no way to know.
The way it's set out right now, it will always be there. It's Extreme Couture, and she's taking the stance as a training fighter. Okay. And that's where she is.
All right.